Yeah, but if you're 37 with inflamed gut and versus 38 and healed, you're going to be way better vessel than the 37 inflamed. To me, it's age is just a number. It's what you're doing with that time that really matters, right? Like if you're just letting the inflammation rule you, then yeah, have the baby now. But if you're actually actively trying to heal, then you at 38 healed is going to be a much better vessel than you inflamed at 37.
Dealing with your gut health issues can be very intense, but what about when we're trying to build our families? Today, we're talking with Dr. Jane, a fertility expert and also naturopath doctor, to talk about the key secrets to be able to get a healthy pregnancy around nutrition, toxicities, common root causes that she sees, and how she herself has helped hundreds of women get pregnant with their spouses and build their families while dealing with gut health issues. Today, we're going to deep dive on how we can build our families while healing our gut. Enjoy. Dr. Jane, can you first tell us a little bit about what got you so passionate about this and what do you think makes you so unique and successful?
Yeah. So I think every practitioner has their story, and I definitely didn't expect to be specializing in fertility. It's a space that I chose me more than I chose it, because I struggled with IBS, and I kind of started going down the route of, okay, I'm going to help people with digestion. And then when I jumped into my own family journey, having my first kid threw me in for a loop. I was already healthy. I was a naturopath. I was a CrossFit athlete. Like I considered myself really healthy. And that pregnancy was really difficult for my body. How sick I felt, the cold sores that I got, which I would only get before when I was really stressed, made me realize that like, oh my goodness, this is a really big stress on my system. And what pissed me off is that nobody told me to prepare. Everyone was just, you'll be fine. Just start trying. You could take a prenatal for 3 months to make sure that your nutrient levels are optimized. But that was the only advice, you know? And so I was mad that that was the only advice because I didn't expect it. And I'm the kind of person that if I knew better, I would have done better. And I think everybody is to an extent. So that was, and then my labor and delivery was just completely out of my control. And I knew I wanted to have more children, and there's no way that I was willing to put myself through that experience again. I was one push away from a C-section. I ended up needing the epidural. I ended up, being rushed to the hospital, and it was very traumatic. It took me a really long time to recover after that. So that was the first event that was like, there's no way that this is how we're supposed to bring children into this world, because I've seen women have babies in the woods and have euphoric experiences and have these, incredible moments, transformations. That wasn't me, and I felt robbed, to be honest, of this experience. So I knew that I had to figure some stuff out before I was going to do it again. My sister, who was older, 37 years old, the doctor is just straight up, you need IVF if after 6 months you're not getting pregnant. No history, no lab test, nothing. So right away, I was like, well, that's weird, because I thought they only reserved IVF for very special cases, It turned out that wasn't the case. They were kind of just prescribing that's if you are going to a fertility specialist, you are going to an IVF specialist. That's essentially what I realized, through my sister's experience. Of course, she came to me instead of her doctor because, again, they just didn't want to go that route. They knew that if it wasn't going to happen naturally, they were just not going to have kids. So now she has 2. The first one came at 38. The second one came at 40. And the second one, she wasn't even trying. So it's like, once you heal the body, it's a natural process. So that started to really click for me. And I started to see more and more patients. And then when I had a miscarriage, that was kind of the last straw where, again, I realized that can actually be a normal process, part of pregnancy and fertility. But it's the lack of support. It was like, just go home and have a miscarriage. No, you don't need to do any lab testing unless you've had 3 miscarriages. It just happens to some women. And the truth is, for some women, it does happen because not every egg is going to be a good egg and not every pregnancy is going to be a viable pregnancy. But there's some miscarriages that we could see a mile away. And why are we not doing any testing to see if you're that person that might be prone to having recurrent pregnancy loss? It's a few simple blood analysis. You don't have to do a lot of functional lab testing. I do with my patients now because they've been through hell. They've been through a lot of stuff. But I just ran this simple panel. What's my progesterone doing? What's my thyroid doing? What are my nutrient levels? Do I have all these things optimized? And is that setting me up for success for my next pregnancy? And all that did is provide me relief because I saw my blood work and I was like, this is good. This is fine. I had a little bit of stress. I have a little bit of tweaking. I had some thyroid stuff that I had to tweak it. And my next pregnancy was much, much different, so that's why I'm here.
I love it.
Big events. And it's like these poor women are going through so much pain and they're being misguided because when you as a woman decide that you want to have children, it's a very strong urge. And so now you're being taken advantage of by different, and it's not like they're meaning to take advantage of it, but it's just like they don't have anything to offer but the IVF.
You're just part of a system. You're a number and you're just in the system, and no one means harm, but just go down the line. I feel that. So one of the biggest things, and I want to recognize this, pain to purpose. That's how I got here where I am. And when I hear pain to purpose, I hear integrity, I hear passion, and that's the kind of leaders we need in this world. Okay. Everybody, when you look for someone to be led, that's what you're looking for. And I think Dr. Jane's an amazing leader. If you're looking to get pregnant, you want to learn more, I highly recommend Dr. Jane, but we're going to dive into that today. So the biggest thing you notice is, hey, we're not running any labs, just basic stuff. Very similar with me,
Yep.
Just basic stuff wasn't being done. So you found that some labs needed to be changed. What are some basic labs that people can do? Or you would say right off the gate, what labs do you want to do? I think you mentioned them, but could you go a little bit more into that?
For sure. Yeah. So there is, and what I would say is you should be doing lab work before you're even thinking about conceiving. The question, that you asked, like, oh, I'm on biologicals and I just started to heal. Is this a good time to conceive? I use the analogy of the house. You are a house, right? You need a foundation. You need good building blocks to build the cells. You need good ventilation. You need good plumbing. The house needs to be strong and sturdy. When you are pregnant, you are building a house within a house, right? The food that you eat will become your baby, just like the food that you're eating now will become you. So when we go to buy a house, think about how much work we put into doing the research of the neighborhood to make sure that it's the right neighborhood and it's the kitchen and the painting and the whatever. Like you look at all these detail and you do a check before you actually commit to buying a house. And buying a house is not the biggest commitment that you will make. It is a huge step in your life, and it is a big commitment, but it's not that biggest commitment. And having a child, I believe, it's a lifetime. So if we're not doing any check on ourselves before committing to something like that, to me, it seems silly, right? So both partners should be understanding what their health is, because you're genuinely are just going to pass on whatever it is that's happening for you. And I know that you probably see this in your field too. It's like, oh, my parents had Crohn's, my parents had IBD, and that's just the way that I am. And so I see that all the time. And it's like, no, let's stop that in the tracks, because let's look at lifestyle. Let's look at environmental toxins. Let's look at mental, emotional health and traumas that we've been carrying. All that to say, I want everybody to run like just your CBC, your liver enzymes, your kidney function, your electrolytes. You want to look at your blood sugar, including fasted insulin, HbA1c, fasted blood glucose levels. That's really, really important, not just for the health of the pregnancy, but even to be able to maintain. So insulin is really toxic to the placenta. Your chance of having a miscarriage is much higher when you have metabolic issues. And inflammation, immune system function, right? Ruling out autoimmune disease. I run an autoimmune panel, the ANA and ENA profile. I run that on both my male and my females. And there's males that come up with autoimmune disease nowadays all of the time. And you're like, oh, what does it matter? It matters a lot, right? There's inflammation now in the system. And so now the mitochondria, basically the powerhouse of the cell and the thing that makes all the hormones, which therefore helps us with good sperm production and good egg quality. Now it's caught up in dealing with this immune system inflammation, and whether it's virus, bacteria, parasite, you name it, it's taking all that energy is going towards that instead of the reproductive system. And so that's like the basics. And then when we get into hormones, I test FSH, LH, estrogen, DHEA, like a full testosterone panel, including DHT and sex hormone binding globulin. And I do that for both males and females. Females, we do that on day 3. Males, obviously, it doesn't matter. And then for females, I will test in the second half of the cycle. I will also look at progesterone, because it gives me an idea, like no test is perfect, right? There's hormones pulse. There's different, every cycle is different, but we want to get an idea of what's going on, so then we're not shooting in the dark. Plus, you can collect some data, like whether it's body basal temperature, or I'll use the Aurora ring a lot because it'll tell us, second half of the cycle, higher temperature, or first half of the cycle. So you can start to pair the different types of data to help us understand what the body is saying. But that, I would say, is a quick, like, hey, you just got to get these things checked, because it will tell you a lot about the symptoms that you're experiencing. And I don't know about you, but I haven't met anyone who is symptom-free in our day and age.
Of anything. I mean, a symptom is a part of life, right? There's no such thing as perfection. So at the same time, we have to tap on that every little thing that happens, especially with us with IBD. I've noticed bloating, I got acne, or I got loose stool. It's okay. No one's perfect. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, no one's.
You're not going to have that perfect poop banana every single day.
Yeah, it's no one.
It could be most of the time.
Yeah, perfection and a pulse don't go together. Like if you're alive, there's going to be some movement and everything. But talk about it, you said a lot in the lab work, so let's simplify that for everyone to hear. Now, if you're really taking this seriously, you should listen to that, write everything down that she said. That we want to do a CMP and CBC, so your complete blood count, your complete metabolic panel. And then what's really big is understanding what's going on with your metabolics and your insulin. Your fasted glucose needs to be more normalized. That's also, you need to be watching out on how much processed foods and sugars you're getting into your nutrition plan. That is spiking that. So we want to have regular insulin levels. We want to watch out for any inflammation. That's big for all of us listening here. Now, that's going to be, you want to see normal calprotectin, you want to see normal sed rate, CRP, PANCA, ASCA, these types of signs in the blood.
Even cholesterol, right? I find that cholesterol and triglycerides are elevated. That's a sign of blood sugar dysregulation. And even if you have a little bit of blood sugar dysregulation, that's a way that your body's showing inflammation. I've seen a ton of women who have beautiful CRP and their ESRs are within range, but you look at the gut, or you look at the blood sugar, or you look at cholesterol, and there it is, right? So the way that your body shows inflammation is going to be a little bit different. And that's why I don't run just one test, because you might, and I didn't even mention thyroid, which is obviously a really important one in the hormone panel, but you might have a perfect thyroid. And then you look a little bit further down and your LH and FSH is all over the place, or your testosterone as a woman is non-existent. And you're thinking, yay, I don't have high testosterone, but low testosterone is also bad. Good levels of testosterone, we need it not just for muscle mass, metabolism, and bone, motivation, libido, but also for the quality of the egg. It helps with the maturation of the egg. And so lots of women are not tested for testosterone unless it's high, because that's what we know is bad. But low testosterone is just as bad. So everything is about balance and, where is the body showing it? Because this is where genetics come in, right? Like your inflammation is going to show up different as my inflammation, and somebody else's, and you and your partner will have different markers that are elevated. So it's about being able to find it, because I know it's there. So it's finding where it is and that genetic variation, if you will, so then we can change it.
Well said. And there was a lot there. So hormone panel, thyroid panel, blood work, CBC, CMP, metabolics, understanding nutrient deficiencies. And all of these will help reduce the chance of a miscarriage and increase fertility. Now, I think what you're saying also is if we can run this all before you're even thinking you're going to get pregnant, that gives you as a fertility expert a huge advantage at knowing how to help, or how you feel about, okay, are they ready to conceive a healthy child? Because not only do we want to get pregnant, we want to get pregnant with a healthy child. We want to have a healthy pregnancy.
For sure.
It's not just the ability, it's the quality.
Yeah.
So that's big. Okay, that's big. And what nutrients are you looking for to really help support that in that lab work? What are some big ones that you see are a problem and that people aren't properly focusing on?
I think just like the regular blood work, we're quite limited to like your B9, B12, iron, vitamin D, and those are the big ones that I'll run. If you want to have a more comprehensive look, like a micronutrient panel, I've used to run quite a bit of those. I do a little bit less, and it just kind of depends on what else I'm seeing and what's going on, because there is so many different tests that you could do, and it can get, expensive and overwhelming for the patients. So I kind of pick and choose. Vitamin D is low in probably 80% of my patients. And I say 80 because there's a bunch of people who come to me who are already supplementing with vitamin D, but like chronically low, like below 10, below 20, closer to that 10, 15 mark. For males who are struggling with low testosterone, like that's a no-no. For a female struggling with any low hormones, brain fog, immune system function, we need to get that vitamin D up. Of course, the question is always, so I love nutrients. I look at them because it's an easy, low-hanging fruit. Like if you have really low B12 and I give you B12, you're going to feel better. But what I always say is that's not the root cause. And that's why I love Cell Core so much, because we're talking about toxicities causing deficiencies. When we see chronically low iron for whether it's a male, which I have seen quite a bit, but for females and they're not bleeding really heavy, I'm thinking parasites, I'm thinking infections. And that was, for me, the case as well on my healing journey. So I don't want people to be, you've asked the question, it's like, how do I know I'm moving in the right direction? Or how do I know something is going to work? If you feel like you're grasping at straws, and if you're just fixing nutrients, or even if you're going to a naturopath and they're just like, your iron is low, start taking iron, to me, that's a huge red flag, because that's not root cause, and I don't blame that naturopath, because even in our schooling, we weren't really taught a lot of these things. Like you have to go through a journey yourself to realize that me taking iron long-term doesn't actually help me. And then I got frustrated with that. And then I found another solution, right? And so you have to find those practitioners who are doing that, because they've obviously been through. So I look at nutrients because I think it gives us an idea of what's going on, but I always pair it with the environmental toxic panel and like a stool analysis, because are you not absorbing it? Are you not getting enough? Or is it leaking out? Like, are you using it up too quickly, which is very common when we have, high toxic load infections, all that jazz, high stress.
I love what you're saying. It's so in line with what we do and what people are listening are already being showed to do when dealing with Crohn's colitis. Because you're saying environmental toxin, which you guys can get a test at wholesale price right there on the IBD shop. Environmental toxin, we can do a micronutrient panel if you want to get it. It's right there. We can do a quantitative PCR. We like to use the stool, the GI map plus zonulin, but all of them are really good. And, you can go potato. And then, you're also talking about, in the stool analysis, we're looking to see, are we seeing high levels of candida? Are we seeing parasites? When you see and you find some of those root issues, we also do viral load panels for EBV, CMV, and all those viruses, which me and you both know viruses is a massive root issue going on in the body. And we want to clear those before we get pregnant. So 2 thoughts here. If you're seeing somebody and you're running these panels and you see candida or parasites, the tests aren't that great, and you're getting a sign that they do have parasites, are you stopping and saying, look, I know you were planning on getting pregnant in the next 3 or 4 months, but I recommend that we sit and we focus on doing parasite cleanses and biofilms and drainage pathways, for 6 months and delay this pregnancy? How do you handle that tough question?
I know, it's a very good question. It's tough. So I don't have the power to tell people to that. I don't.
But if you could guide your advice, if you could guide and they said, Dr. Jane, whatever you say, I'm going to follow. What would be your advice? Yeah.
For the most part, my couples have been struggling to conceive for so long that it's like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do anyways. And I'm going to explain to them. And usually what we do is we just take a break, meaning that like, hey, I always encourage couples. It's like, we all got here somehow. We don't need to be super psychotic about tracking our LH strips and peeing on all sorts of sticks and pricking ourselves to figure out our ovulation window. Our body gives us some pretty good signals when it's ovulating. And if it's not giving you good signals when you're ovulating, it's because your ovulation isn't very strong. And the reason that your ovulation isn't very strong is because you have X, Y, and Z going on. And the last thing your body's thinking about is, I should make a baby. Because pregnancy is a really stressful event for the body. You're making a human from scratch. Like, it is so many resources and so much energy that if you yourself, if I ask you, because sometimes I'll have women come and they're like, I just want to get pregnant, but I have chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'm like, if I asked you to run a marathon and then run another adventure race right after that marathon for a whole year, could you do it? And they're just like, no, I'm exhausted. Well, that's what pregnancy is. That's what postpartum is. It's not fun. There's a lot of joyous moments, absolutely, but it's also the most tired you will ever be. And so if you are tired now, it's like, I don't know how you're going to gain the energy to be able to, to do the whole thing well. And obviously the whole purpose is to do it well. So my recommendation is always, to be honest, when my clients see it, they go, should we stop trying and just try to detox first? And I go, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like it's, for the most part, when I show them, my clients just go, totally. There's a few that are just going to keep trying every month because it feels terrible for them not to try. I'm still going to do all of the things that we need to do, which is detox, drainage, and they'll still do it. It's just mentally, it feels we just have to have sex in this window. If we don't, I feel more stressed. And now we're just weighing out pros and cons of stress, right? If it's, you guys do what you need to do, but here's the reality of the situation. Here's the stuff that we have to get out. And here's how long it's going to take. And here's what we need to do, So I have a very open and honest conversation with my patients now. For the ones that are struggling with recurrent pregnancy loss, that's usually where I advise to, hey, we're going to retest before you try again. And there's usually no problems because you're so tired of losing your babies and it's been 5, 6 that you're like, I don't really want to do that anymore. My body's tired. And so it's almost like I'm the person that just gives them permission to, like, you can stop trying, but here's this other thing that we're going to do. It just feels bad when you're not doing anything, right? Like, especially for the type A personalities, which, I am as well. And if I'm not doing anything, then it's really hard. But if I'm working towards healing, then it feels I'm being productive. And that's good. That feels good. That eases the soul while you're working on some of those deeper rooted things.
Well said. So beautifully said. And when we talk about it now, everyone here who's listening to this or watching this online has been diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease or thinks they have it, or IBS. We know there's problems. Now, me and you are both going to read. I heard you say this in your speech at Cellcore, toxic load, environmental toxins. I think you actually recommended the book, The Toxic Solution.
Yeah.
I'm sure if that was you. Was that you?
That was me.
Toxic Solution. That's a great book to look. You can go to Amazon.com. Do you know who wrote that book?
Bizarre, no.
Joe.
He's in his 80s now, I think. He is like the pioneer in environmental medicine.
Right. And so, guys, keep reading about this. Now, you are already learning about massive things of how to get rid of toxins, from the glyphosate in the food and the air quality and all of that. But one of the best things you can do, going after parasites, is potentially dangerous. Your body might have a severe Herx reaction. It could take months on end. It's not a fun experience. There's a lot there. If we start, and I think you would agree with this, would you first start with just reducing toxic load in their environment, in their food, all of that? Is that the best place people can start right now if they want to? And that's men and women, because I want one thing today, I want to talk about how important it is for men to do this as well.
Yep.
But
so let me share the bathtub analogy. I think that's going to be really helpful for people. And that's, imagine you're a goldfish swimming in the bathtub, and then there's the shower head coming through, there's the drain, and then there is, the plumb, the sewer that takes everything out. You're the goldfish swimming in the bathtub. So the cleanliness of that water is going to directly affect how healthy that goldfish is, aka you. Conventional medicine, if the tub is dirty, they sprinkle some medications on that. Natural, functional approach, foundational approach, whatever you want to call it, is like, hey, let's clean out the tub. It's the tub that's dirty. Let's not just sprinkle things into the tub and hope that it works. And so the shower head is the cleanliness of the water that's coming into the tub. So that's your food, your water, your air, the skin products that you're putting in, and even the thoughts that you're thinking, right? If you're always negative, and it's not that you are negative, but that's how you were brought up, and there's a lot of trauma that happened, whether it's big T or little t, that's going to impact your ability to heal. I think of that as dirty water coming into the tub. And so we got to, change up the faucet in the way that we start to think. So that's the first, there's two components, right? We want to clean up. And then the second is you got to open up that drain, because you want to make sure the sewer is actually, the plumbing is taking everything out instead of it backing up back into the water, and that drain is unclogged. And so those two components, the drainage and the unclogging, is where I'd highly recommend working with a practitioner, because like you said, Herx reactions are possible. And they happen a lot of the times when you have no idea what you're doing and you're using some powerful product. Like Cellcore is a powerful product. When people are like, oh, I just did this parasite push without doing anything else, I go, like, you did what? This. And then for some people, obviously they're fine. They don't really notice anything. But for others, they get some pretty bad Herx reactions. So cleaning up the environment, it's not going to hurt you. It's only going to do good. You might notice a big of a difference because your drainage is really clogged, but it's not hurting you. And then once you open up that drainage and get that sewer moving, and get the colon and the gut cleaned out, then you will notice a big difference in the environment, right? I can walk into a room and tell you if there's mold in it or if there's chemicals. Walking into I can't remember, it was like a hardware store. And I'm like, how do people work here? Like, this is insane levels of toxins, right? And it's like, are we really confused or shocked about the fact that they have brain fog and they're all overweight and they all, right? Like, not really. Those poor people just have no idea, right? There's lack of awareness. But that would be my, analogy to help you understand. For males, like for females, the reason that it's important to detox and to avoid is because you're the first home that the baby will grow. Your baby will grow from your tissues, especially in the first trimester. Women always want to get healthy once we're pregnant. But guess what happens when you're pregnant? You have food aversions, you're exhausted, all you're craving is like bread and milk and crackers and chocolate, and you're not craving nutritious food, because especially if your microbiome is out of balance. If you already have yeast or fungus overgrowing, you're going to crave those bugs are going to now feast even more so. So the baby's growing from your tissues. And that's why I say, like, hey, you got to do the work beforehand. So then even if you get food aversions, your nutrient levels are so high that the baby can take some from you and you're going to be okay. So you're the first place that the baby will grow. And the demand on your liver, on your kidneys, on your gut as you grow and get bigger is so, like, your blood volume doubles. It doubles, you guys. Why do women get swollen in the second half of the cycle? Because the liver is like, I can't handle anymore, right? That lymph is just like, I can't, there's no strength in the extracellular matrix, and it starts to leak this fluid. And so it's too much for the system. So we want to make sure that drainage is optimized, and we can't do the detoxing in pregnancy. You can do some active like movement and eating. You can do the avoidance part, but you're not going to detox somebody during pregnancy. For males, if you're not, let me finish the males and then, because I know it's a lot, but for males, it's anything that the body's pushing out is a potential for toxins to come out. And so what we're seeing is sperm becoming this toxic dumping ground because the males are not pooping properly. They're not drinking enough water, so they're not urinating. They're not sweating enough on a regular basis. They're not breathing heavy on a regular basis. So where do the toxins have to go, right? They have to come out. And so semen becomes this really toxic dumping ground. And you see it in sperm analysis. You see that, 95% of sperm is abnormal, and you're being passed as normal because if anything over 4% morphology is okay. It's like 95% of the sperm that you're making has abnormally shaped heads. Guess what's in the head? The DNA, so now we're seeing DNA fragmentation. So when we're looking at pregnancy and that sperm coming to fertilize the egg has to fix those DNA fragmentations. And so if the egg has any issues, it just doesn't have enough energy to fix the sperm, fix its own, and then start fertilization process. Like it's just, it's done. So I think it's really important for males to detox and not, so that sperm is just the good stuff. We're not dumping anything, we got to dump the other stuff, the other ways that are more efficient for the body.
You believe this toxic load is affecting the sperm, which is affecting the DNA, and it's affecting the conception. So this is happening on the male side, the female side. But the root thing we're seeing here is first we have to look at toxic load. So how do we start reducing toxic load? I'll name a few, but Dr. Jane, this is, you're here to make this happen, right? Water.
Huge.
What do you like for water? So what would you recommend? I mean, tap water, obviously we want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Plastic water bottles, get rid of them. Microplastics, endocrine disruptors, but water's a big one. What else?
It's food, water, air are going to be your three, I would say, main, and then you get into the skin products. So I see a lot of people focusing on like, let's get rid of the skin products. Let's get rid of, change the makeup. Don't get me wrong. Like those are important. But if you're putting makeup on once a day versus you're drinking 3 to 4 liters of water a day, or you're eating 3 to 4 meals a day, or you're literally breathing in, I had a air filtration specialist, like it's 300,000 liters of air that you're breathing in a day. Like it's something insane that you should be aware of those things. And so, for example, if you're using a lot of stuff to spray, like yeah, that's cleaning up the quality of the air for you as well. But food, water, air is going to be huge. And to me, it just like depends on what is it that you're doing most. The water, I find, is an easy fix, because all you have to, you're already drinking the water if we filter it well. So I recommend the distillation, especially now that we're seeing a lot more radioactive elements in the water. We're just seeing so much gunk. And I don't want to scare people, but like, it's not good. So if I can have the gold standard of the distilled, and then maybe it's reverse osmosis versus like, I used to have a Berkey and I used to love my Berkey. We still have it somewhere, but it's like, that's not enough anymore. And it makes me sad to say that. But in reality, like 80% of the water that you're drinking should be really clean water. And I say 80 because the other 20, if you're traveling, you're probably going to buy a bottle of water with plastic. And I don't want you to have a heart attack or have anxiety about it. Your body is going to be able to bounce that, especially if you're drinking better water, like smart water is good and Fiji water is good for when you're traveling. You make those exceptions and you can feel good about that, because it's like, hey, when the liver's working well, when the kidneys are working well, you can balance that stuff out, right? It's not a big deal versus that's all you drink all of the time. And that plastic is sitting in a car heating up, and then you're eating from plastic and the food contains plastic and you're cutting on a plastic board. That's the problem. It's that we're not aware of how high our toxic load really is. And we keep thinking like, oh, it's this just small thing. It's just this small thing. It's just this small thing, which actually adds up to a big one. So water is like one of the first things I'll recommend, because I'll even get people to do a delivery service, right? And they're like, but isn't it in plastic? I'm like, well, it's hard plastic and it hasn't been there for that long. And we know that it's like, if it's local, it hasn't traveled for that long. So it's still better than the tap water that you're drinking. Right. So we're kind of making the lesser of the two evils. There's the perfect scenario, which doesn't really exist. And then there is what's the next best thing and what's financially feasible, mentally, emotionally feasible, because we know that that can get really overwhelming. So water is probably one of the first things I'll fix. And then I'll actually have been gravitating more towards air and then food, because if the water is clean and the air is clean, you start to feel better. And then you can start to make better choices with food. Because why are we making bad choices with food? You're inflamed, you're exhausted, your cortisol is through the roof or non-existent. So you're just trying to get some energy with your food and it's not going into the body the way that it should. And so I find the food I actually touch a little bit later versus the food. And it's like, all you have to do is put an air filter in and like maybe unplug some of your stuff that some of the aerosol candles. I don't even know what they're called anymore, because it's like, should people still use those, And they do because it makes their home smell nice. And it's like, well, if the home doesn't smell nice, it's probably because it's moldy. So that's a whole other issue, right? Or dusty or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a little bit more expensive to buy the filter, but you also don't have to do anything. So you're either paying with time or money. I had Mike, he's the creator of Jasper, a really great filtration system. It's like, you turn that thing up to 3 at nighttime, you wake up and your bedroom smells like you're waking up in the mountains. It's like, I don't
What's the name of this?
know anymore. Jasper
filter. We use Air Doctor, but I know Cellcore's been saying, there's something better out there. So we're still looking at the research of that, but quality.
Have him on your podcast. He's fantastic. I'll connect you to on Instagram. I loved him.
What's his name?
Mike Filstein.
Mike Filstrain, the creator of Jasper air filters. Beautiful.
Yep.
So I, completely agree. Air filter. I wanted to say something because you mentioned distilled water. This is something I invite anyone to go research. We're looking at, is reverse osmosis with a carbon filter technology enough to get rid of all the chemicals and problems in water? And what we're hearing from the camp of distilled water is it doesn't get rid of the radioactive compounds. And that's one of the biggest issues that can be causing cellular dysfunction. So there is a large movement in distilled water with added trace minerals. Specifically, you want deep sea trace minerals, 70 plus trace minerals. I like using Quinton tonics. I found another one yesterday that I can't remember the name of it, but there's a few companies that have really, really good trace minerals that you can add back into the water. And I know that Dr. Jane, what do you think about the notion? I know this was mentioned plenty of times, but let's mention it here. Distilled water is robbing your body of minerals.
Yeah.
That's the biggest fear.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're not getting most of your minerals from water. You get most of your minerals from food. So I think the notion that we get most of our minerals from water is the silly one. So it tastes really plain because there's nothing in it and it's crazy. But as soon as you add just a little bit of minerals to it, you can taste the difference as well. But, I've had people argue that, I don't want to drink distilled water because it's going to rob me of minerals. It's like, hey, you're not drinking any water, period. And all you've been drinking is caffeine. Like you've been robbing your body of minerals for a long time. And we're comparing things that are like, it's the people who say, well, I heard carrots are high glycemic load. And then you're going off and eating a Snickers bar. Guys, like it's not a big deal. Just drink the clean water, because if you're eating food on a regular basis, you don't even have to put minerals into the distilled water. I think it's an added benefit and it's better for absorption, but your intestines are not going to erode because you're just drinking distilled water, because you're still eating food and that's where you're getting the minerals, right? You're putting salt on your food. You're eating hopefully some fruits and vegetables. You're going to get it, So I think we're just trying to grasp onto information that is irrelevant. Like I said, but the carrots are high glycemic. Eat the carrots. Just eat them because it's better than the alternative that you're choosing. And I see this with medications all the time where people are so strict and they're like, but I have to take my medications. Otherwise I'm not well. And then I heard there's side effects to vitamins. What are you talking about? Do you know how many side effects there is? Honestly, like I had someone argue and I'm like, I'm talking about a multivitamin. Like take a multivitamin. You're on 5 different medications and you're worried about what's in the multivitamin. So that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, man, the indoctrination is really deep. And I want to be the louder voice to say, hey, meds, I don't know, what is it, the 3rd or the 4th reason that for death in the States right now, pharmaceutical?
Yeah. Yeah, I think 4th is,
there.
I think it's accidents. I think right above it is actually hospital accidents, which is even
better. You could have been one of those, but you weren't, right? Like, thank God you were on the other side. But we have to start opening up our eyes. And like I said, it's not that they're meaning harm, but who is at the top? Who is teaching what? And where is the follow the money? So if you have millions of people on meds, like even think about oral contraceptives, somebody who doesn't need medication is on medication, right? Like that's a really good business plan. And then you're going to need to be on more medication after that. Now you need IVF to get pregnant because you have no idea what your cycle is. Another great plan. So we have to start unraveling and being like, okay, what are we really, it's not about being perfect. It's, do you have clean water? Are you eating, like, do you know where your food is sourced? And I always say 80% of the time, because you're not going to be able to control the other 20, and that's okay. But 80% of the time, food, water, air, and then, obviously the products that you're putting on yourself. I think a lot of people put energy towards that without putting energy towards the big things. Like, to me, I'd rather see you get a good source of water than change out all your makeup. I think you're going to feel much better. You're going to notice a bigger difference. And that's what I look for as a practitioner. It's like, what's going to make the bigger difference?
You make a great point. So a lot of toxin load, guys. We talk about that food, air, and water. Then you want to go into the makeup, the laundry detergent, get rid of scented candles, get rid of the carpet, mold, remediation. There's a long way to go there. So keep deep diving. We will keep adding more and more to our program of how to get more specific about toxic load in the body. And we talked a lot about that. Now I want to kind of roll in a little bit to, and I want this, Dr. Jane, to be something that if a client's coming to you and saying, I'm compliant, help optimize me, I want to do what you think. What's the role of optimizing the microbiome in fertility?
Oh,
one of
God.
the core issues with IBD. And before we go into that, I want to make one thing clear to everyone who might be feeling a little dreary, like it's too much, or you've already tried all this. Healing Crohn's and colitis and making a vessel for optimal fertility is the exact same thing.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing. You're already on the road listening right now. You're already on the road. You're already doing this stuff. You're helping your fertility. You're reducing inflammation. You're helping your microbiome. You're reducing the risk of you needing all these drugs for the rest of your life. If you want them or not want them, you are empowering yourself either way.
Yep. Yeah. You said, and I think we talked about this, like what you need to optimize, what we do as practitioners in terms of what we specialize in is like 70% of the stuff is the same. The 30% is different. And you need that 30% depending on where you are in your journey. So if you have really severe IBS, Crohn's colitis, you need the 30% that Dane is offering right now, because he is the guy that knows about IBD and IBS. Once you heal from that and you're getting ready to get pregnant, you need my 30%, because you've already done the 70. Now you need the next 30%, because there might be some tweaks about hormones that Dane isn't familiar with, or what I do in terms of, first half of the cycle, second half of the cycle, and preparing the
100%.
microbiomes. But you're already doing the 70%. And it's just, I drew this out at Cellcore, the staircase ladder. It's knowing what you need to work on now versus what somebody else is working on. It's your next right step, not anybody else's. And the way that you do that is by, it's tracking data, it's understanding your lab work, and it's understanding where you are in your journey, because you don't want to just do everything. That's where we get overwhelmed. It's like, no, it's not about doing everything. There's a lot of stuff that you could be doing, but you only need to focus on this specific thing. And the way that you know that is, like I said, through lab testing and data, and obviously like a practitioner who specializes in the space. So, we can it's absolutely, if you're decreasing inflammation, if you're improving your microbiome and you're healing your Crohn's, you are optimizing your fertility. Your fertility is a reflection of your health.
So great steps for a journey for everyone wanting to get pregnant with this is, first, you really, if you're saying, I want to get pregnant next year, you want to do lab work. Get the lab work in. Then let's start reducing toxic load. Play the defense. Then let's start optimizing the gut, the microbiome. That's where your hormones are made. That's where you get proper bioavailable nutrients or all those minerals you think you're not getting. Well, if you're not absorbing them, your hormones, your thyroid, everything, the gut is where. So any disease, you have to optimize the gut. That's what we need to reduce. And do you have any thoughts on the dangers of, if people are getting pregnant with lots of different parasites causing cytokine reactions, or, fungus? I really think that Candida, the more I look at it, I think fungal overgrowth is where it's creating an environment for parasites to thrive. It's creating an environment for viral replication, people with constant reactivation of Epstein-Barr virus, shingles, cytomegalovirus. We have to continue to look at that fungal underlying load. How much do you think that?
I mean, let's look at, because this is all in the reproductive microbiome. And, kind of what I said before, we are just going to pass on our issues. And so I didn't do any work before getting pregnant. And my daughter is healthy, meaning she didn't, but I'm also very on her. I can see when she's quite reactive on the full moon. So we just started doing some parasite cleansing, because I know about that now. If I didn't know about it, I would just say, oh, she's an emotional reactive kid, or she has some bloating or indigestion, because there was lack of awareness in myself. And therefore I cannot bring that awareness to that next generation. And so what we're seeing now is there's, kids are insanely sick right now. And I used to test kids, and it's you see the heavy metals that they have, the fungus and the parasites and all that. It's that's not in their lifetime. You're telling me this 3-year-old has an insane more toxic load than a 60-year-old. I literally remember when I was just seeing everybody and anybody running these tests, and I'm like, this is crazy. And this is when one of the little turning points, I wonder if women prep themselves before pregnancy, if we could prevent some of this stuff. And so there's the balance between, hey, we don't want to create fear, because you definitely don't have to be perfect to get pregnant, but you do want to be in a place where you feel like you're in control of your health. And maybe you're not going to be completely free of mold, but you want to be in a place where your body knows how to break it down and metabolize it instead of accumulating and causing a lot of issues. If you are aware of that journey, then you will be able to set that foundation for your tiny little human that you're going to make. And they're still going to be healthier than most people that are just putting, lack of awareness is what I say. They just don't know. They were told, my body is built to do this, so I should be able to do it. And that is true. But our environment is not set up for that. So we have to start looking at the environment and why so many of us are struggling with infertility.
We have a toxic environment, and you're 100% right. We live in a detox world. It's just plain and simple. And so we focus on the microbiome. We also talked about drainage. You have to make sure you're pooping properly. You're getting poops 1 to 3 times a day. So a lot of people worry with Crohn's colitis. I had 3 bowel movements today. Is that too much? No, that's actually quite good. If you're having one bowel movement, one bowel move, one full meal to one bowel movement is actually nice numbers. And you want to make sure your lymphatic system is working and you're draining toxins to the lymph. That's going to help with cellular detox. Your liver, you got to make sure your liver's moving the bile. We talked about the drainage in your goldfish analogy. So that helps. So once we reduce the toxic load, we also support the liver. Liver So it's, it's liver, it's lymph, it's gut, it's skin, sweat, and we want to optimize the digestion. You had mentioned that, hey, we need to treat these pathogens before you're pregnant if you're going to do it. So if you believe that there's parasites, you believe that there's candida, viral load, get rid of that stuff. And you can test those things pretty good. Parasites are hard to test, yes, but we can even keep systemic candida, right? But we get rid of that stuff. One of the things, I know we're running out of time, but I really want to get to this point of optimizing. When you hear about people pregnant, it's like you have to be on a prenatal. I want to hear your thoughts about having to be on a prenatal if you're eating so clean. And then a lot of doctors are always saying, you've got to have extra iron. You've got to have extra Bs, B12, right? You've got to have methylfolate. And you're seeing this talked about over and over again in the multis. What kind of nutrition plan, if you could control someone and I know it's different for each person, but what do you lean towards in nutrition plan and supplementation, needing of supplementation, if you've got that white canvas who doesn't have any reason to say, oh yeah, they need extra vitamin D or B12 or what? What are your generic thoughts on that?
Yeah, protein is going to be huge. I think so many women are malnourished in protein. So getting enough protein and eating the rainbow, and then everything else is just going to be like whatever your taste buds are going to crave. And so here's where, if you've done the work and you've changed your microbiome, so, you talked about the gut microbiome, but there's the reproductive microbiome, which is going to get impacted a lot by the gut microbiome. And what I see a lot is actually not that we have a lot of pathogenic bacteria, but we have opportunistic bacteria, meaning they overgrow if given the opportunity to do so. So like candida is one of those. And why are they given the opportunity to overgrow? So whether it's heavy metals or other industrial environmental toxins, or not enough of the good guys. So like we don't have that prebiotic, the short chain fatty acids to help fuel the mucosal lining. And we're seeing that in the reproductive system as well. So BV, bacterial vaginosis, candida infections, UTIs, obviously any history of STDs and STIs. Those are all signs that some of the pathogenic bacteria might still be there. And it's really, really important to look at that because that's the first home that the baby will grow in and interact. There was somebody who asked a question around being afraid with a C-section. So C-sections are not terrible. Sometimes that's the best way for the baby to come into this world. I just had a patient where the baby was stuck in her hip, and so she wasn't progressing. And they turned out, it's like, there's nothing that she could have done to have that baby naturally. And so we feel a lot of shame as women around C-section, but in reality, sometimes it is the best way to go. What I see the increase in C-section is low nutrients. So vitamin D levels, they've done research and studies. Women who have low vitamin D are going to have higher chance of a C-section. Pathogenic bacteria, high levels, the baby is going to go the best way that it is for that baby. And so if that baby doesn't feel safe to go through the vaginal canal for whatever reason, then I don't want to say we have to respect that, but we have to respect that in that pregnancy. Can you change it for the following? Absolutely. And this is where the testing can come in place, but also just some of your own data. How do you feel? How are your poops? How long have you been doing the work for? So then we can bring this baby, safely into this world. But we don't want to be afraid of C-sections. It's like they're there for a reason, but we also don't want to just use it as a crutch. Oh, I guess I'll just get a C-section. Like, why? Right? Something in the hip misalignment, is a bacteria, is a nutrient levels that were low. And so to get back to your questions, once you are pregnant, it's protein, it's eating the rainbow. And if you've done the cleanliness, you're not going to crave junk. My women are craving fruit. They're craving, smoothies. They're craving juices. They're craving protein. They're not craving Skittles or whatever junk, right? Like they're not craving any of that food because their
mac and cheese
want it.
Yeah, that's a classic one, like mac and cheese, peanut butter with white bread, and McDonald's.
That's it. But it's like, that's because it's your microbiome that's dictating that, right? It's your bugs that are dictating. And I use my husband as an example all the time because he grew up on the standard American diet. And there's days now where he's like, man, I'm craving some carrots. He's like, I don't even know who I am anymore, but like we've been married for almost 10 years. And it's like every year his microbiome and his body shifts and changes. And it's like, we can't eat junk anymore like we used to, because it's just the way that the microbiome is. It doesn't crave it. I don't want sugar. I get a headache immediately. Whereas before it was like, I would crave that. I would probably still get a headache, but it was worth it for me then, When
we say eat the rainbow, I think a lot of people with IBD are worried because there's a lot of food fear. And we're scared of fiber, and we're scared of lectins and oxalates.
Your microbiome is going to change so much when you're pregnant. There's a huge shift in your microbiome, which is why you start to crave So it goes from being very diverse to being very undiverse, if you will. So there's just like the lactobacillus strains are really big. There's some bifido strains that are really big, but the diversity really, really shrinks down once you're pregnant, especially as you get closer to the third trimester and to labor. So I say, like, we want to get rid of the food fear because that's not true healing.
Yeah.
Right? If you're still afraid of food, like when I had my IBS and I knew where bathrooms were, every time I left, I knew I wasn't healed. Once I stopped, when someone was like, oh, do you know where the bathroom is? And I was like, no, I don't. And it was this like, got it. You know, that's how you know you've healed. So if there's still fear, there's still trauma around it. And so there's still some healing
work to do.
Done. Yeah, there's just some work to do. But you have to, if you can come in line with your body, like you and your body are on the same team, and your body, when you're pregnant, is going to talk to you a lot, because it has to. It's a protective mechanism, and it's going to crave certain things. If you overdid it one day, meaning you went out for walks too many times, guess what? You're going to be really tired the next day. You're like, oh, my energy's not the same. Yeah, because you're growing a baby from scratch. Like, it's a lot of energy, you know? So there is some work to be done there, but I wouldn't, if you're afraid, that fear is going to transfer.
I think my 2 cents for everyone with IBD, because that's a big statement for people with IBD, is working on your whole food elemental shake where you're pureeing your foods is a great place to start, because you can add in all these little fibers, all these little colors in a pureed, bioavailable way, but you're still getting the polyphenols. You're still getting the prebiotics, the fiber that's going to help build that microbiome diversity. So as you find that what you can add into that shake, if you guys look at that, the advancements we talk about in the elemental shake, that's a great way to do it, and do it in a way that's safer. And then if you can continue to calm down what you're even focused on eating by getting rid of, have these addictions or needs to bad food, and keep focusing on the offensive, organic, whole foods of different colors, and be able to tolerate plants, which is fiber. Every plant has a fiber. You're going to notice that get easier and easier and easier. And you're going to get all the antioxidants, all the phytonutrients, all the polyphenols, which is going to build your microbiome. It's going to starve out the yeast to get it back in balance. It's going to help with immune system strength, which is going to help with viral replication. Because a lot of us, if we have underlying viruses and candida, we don't want that environment when we're pregnant, because that puts pressure on the fetus, right? So
in yourself, it depletes you even further, right? Because women literally age when we give birth. So my advice if you have like active IBD that you're trying to heal, is once you have the symptoms in control, give yourself a year before you start trying.
Wow. Okay.
Like it sounds like a lot, but think about if you had IBD for 10 years and you've been in a chronic state of inflammation and depletion for 10 years, to give yourself 3 months to replenish, it's just not enough time. It's like one life cycle of a red blood cell. So
yeah,
I would give yourself a year.
Especially if you're on biologics, because a lot of people in the community are saying, you know, Dr. Jane, I'm on Remicade and Entyvio. Now my goal is to get off of it. And we've seen a lot of people coming through our program who have gotten off of Remicade successfully. But then it's like, how long? 3 months? Yeah, give it time. 6 months, a year. What's your 2 cents on biologics, or, you know, people who are on medication and the conceiving nature? I just want to hear, what are your 2 cents? And some of us, we have to be on biologics. We're such severe cases, and it keeps us in balance, and we're not ready to come off yet. What do you think on that?
I mean, I think you just have to support the body where it's at, you know, and sure you're not. So I have a patient right now, her CD8 cells are elevated because she has endometriosis and adenomyosis. Now we've already worked for a year plus. And so I just like decided to run the lymphocyte map test. So when her CD8 cells are elevated, there's no way she's going to get pregnant. CD8 cells are killer cells. They will literally kill anything that the immune system is thinking is abnormal, aka a fetus, right? Like a sperm, even, it's a foreign object. But we don't want to just suppress the CD8 cells. We want to understand why the CD8 cells are there. And so I think it's the same with biologics. It's like, we don't want to just suppress the immune system, because the immune system is, yes, you're suppressing it right now because you need to, but you have to understand that, like, why is the immune system overreacting? Because there's a reason for that. And so as you deal with a root cause, then you'll see that the need for the medication decreases. And with pregnancy, it's the same thing. Like it's always weighing out the stress, right? The pros and cons. If the stress for you being off the biologics is much higher than being off, then the stress wins. So you're going to be on the biologics, but can we support the body? Can we make sure you have, even like high dose CoQ10 and support some inflammation? So like IFC product by Cellcore, for example, I've used it plenty with my women during pregnancy, and it's safe. Then you have some minerals, you have some mitochondrial support, you have, you're eating really as cleanly as you can, and you're supporting a little bit of drainage in the second and the third. Like I do some dandelion tea, really gentle stuff like dry brushing to just help support the system. You can always work with wherever you are, right? In your journey, you don't have to feel guilty, but it's weigh out the pros and cons. Because for each of us, the pros and cons are going to be different. For somebody, they're going to say, I'm rather get off this before I get pregnant. While others, it's like, I don't want to wait. I just want to get pregnant. There's no right or wrong. It's your life, right? Like you're going to learn the lessons that you need to learn through it. Just make sure you feel okay with those decisions and it's not somebody else's decision. That's what, it's, but the doctor told me that. Do you believe that? Just because some guy told you that you see for 10 minutes once a year, do you actually believe that?
Yeah.
If it is, then that's good. Then go for it. Because my whole thing is like, I don't want you to have regret in life.
Yeah.
Regret sucks,
But the client has to be empowered to make a decision. And you are there to support that, whatever decision that is. And that's how the stance we all have to take. So we talked about, and we talked a bit about nutrition, but you're saying one of the big problems is a lack of protein, not getting enough natural vitamins and minerals in food. Obviously, you want to get rid of inorganic food that is high in glyphosate, which is a natural antibiotic. It's been shown to cause different types of cancer, destroy the microbiome. So you want to get the clean food as impossible. And when you work on this now, when you're pregnant, you are optimizing the pregnancy nutrition, which is just as important because you've practiced how I eat. You've practiced who I am and what my disciplines and my lifestyle. When you've built that lifestyle, it's much easier for our house. Like when my wife got pregnant with both our kids, we were already a gluten-free and all organic, a clean eating house. So she had years of practice of that before she got pregnant. So we didn't really change much, but we felt comfortable with steaks and salads and a lot of different variety of foods and smoothies, elemental smoothies with natural fruits and berries and things of that nature. And then we used Prenatal by Designs for Health just because we like the company, we know them, and it's a good one. You can use any of them. The prenatal is not the most important thing. But one of the questions I wanted to ask that I think we're getting a little bit more controversial now in functional medicine, omega-3 supplementation and omega-3s with babies. We keep hearing how important omega-3s are. What are your thoughts on omega-3s? Is there something that you look for when that question comes up for you? What's your thoughts?
It's a lot. So I think, I think you answered the question with the prenatal. I think taking a prenatal is the minimum that you should be doing because the prenatal is not for you. It's not for the baby. It's for you. The baby will just eat your nutrients. I've seen some social media. She's 25. I'm not taking a prenatal. I just eat well. And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe if you're 25 and it's all organic and blah. But to me, it's like, if you're not going to use it, you're just going to pee it out. But also you have that extra. So I would say that's the minimum you want to do. Like a good probiotic is really important. And choline is really important. And then omegas, I think there's a time and place. So I test my women. And I mean, honestly, I'll test my men for the omega index. So you could see omega-3s, omega-6, arachidonic acid, right? And the biggest thing that I see is it's not even that they're out of range, but that the ratio is really out of range. It's so the arachidonic acid, that's the inflammatory, and even the omega-6s that are coming from seed oils will be high normal, but the EPAs will be really low normal. And that ratio flipped creates a lot of inflammation. So even though the CRP is good and the ESR is good, you see that in the body and it's like, that's a lot of inflammation. And then of course, I think the source really, really matters now because the source, if there's heavy metal contamination, if it's oxidized, it's going to cause more inflammation. And it's going to, essentially it's causing more damage than good, right? So it's not going to create that nice balance that you're looking for. So I do just test and I look because I used to throw people on omega-3s all the time. And now I'm like, not everybody needs it and you don't need it for forever. I very much look at it as a food. Like you're not eating very much food. You're not getting very many omega-3s. We're going to supplement it for a little bit as you're learning how to get these foods in and to help rebalance. And a lot of the times it's like the omega-3s aren't that bad. It's the omega-6s. And people have no idea how much seed oils. They're like, I don't eat that many seed oils. Read your packaging, your popcorn, your oatmeal, your oat milk, your like, it's insane, right? Like
they're littered in Whole Foods too. People don't realize it. It's litter all over Whole Foods grocery store. Even seed oil Scout. If you guys don't have it, they just have been pushing Erewhon, which is a local Southern California, the highest level, and they just started getting this crappy hexane oxidized avocado out of these tortilla chips, but they were selling at the cleanest, most expensive organic grocery store in the country. Erewhon, like, and so they are everywhere. I just, sorry to butt in or interrupt on that, but do you have a recommendation, official, like for everyone looking at it? I really love this one by Body Bio, because I don't know if you've heard of them. Their family.
Yeah, I love Body Bio. Yeah,
they reformulated it, so it's CO2 extracted, so it's not oxidized. It also has SPMs and it has phosphatidylcholine, which is great for cellular health and fetus development. Is PC. Yeah. So you get the PC, the SPM, and you get the CO2 extracted omega-3. And it's not a massive, you need quality omegas more than the massive amount. And I also love cod liver oil, high in vitamin A and vitamin D. We were talking about how we need the fat solubles, we need vitamin D. Cod liver is
not super high in EPAs. It's more DHA. So it's good once you're pregnant. But if you're looking at like getting those EPAs up. So I love Body Bio. I use a lot of their choline and their electrolytes. I haven't used a lot of their fish oils, but I will look into it. I've used Thorne and I've used Genestra for some of the EFA now. I know Genestra, like that's a company that I'm trying to get away from, if you will. But if I see that the markers are working, I'll still use, some of the products, especially if like, okay, people are feeling better and I'm testing the data and I'm getting the result that I need. Because sometimes it's like, I'll use really high doses of, 3 grams, 4 grams a day for a 3-month period to get the body up, because we can really get that inflammation down. And then for women who are struggling with lower estrogen levels, like EPA is a precursor to help with the production of estrogen. I mean, cholesterol in general for hormones, right? So yeah, I love the Body Bio is probably one of my faves. Obviously, I use a lot of Cellcore. They don't have fish oil, but I've used Thorne and I've used Genestra. They have like a super EFA product that has really high EPAs. Because then I'm just looking at, okay, they're missing this. I'm trying to do this. And to be clear, it's like, I don't think that that's root cause medicine. I'm using that to help bring the body up while we're working on root cause. Because the root cause is going to be like, if you've been eating seed oils for all of your life, right? Like they're telling that rice cereal is the first thing that you should be introducing to your baby. Like that's crazy. You're with some oat milk or whatever and like don't drink dairy and blah, blah, blah. So we need to give body time to replenish those cells. But I also realize that like not everybody has a lot of time. So we'll use those things to kind of boost the body quickly while we're working on the root cause of stuff.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jane. Where can people find you if they want to learn more? They're interested in being coached by you to go through a pregnancy.
Yeah. Instagram is where I'm most active. So Dr. Jane Levesque. My website is drjanelevesque.com. It's TikTok. It's YouTube, my YouTube channel. And I connect with everybody who jumps on. So send me a message. I have an assistant. I have a ton of podcasts that are very specific towards what it is that's going on for you. So I try to be very prescriptive with my podcast recommendations. If you have low estrogen, high estrogen, low progesterone, autoimmune disease, there's very specific approaches, right? That 30% that's going to make the difference. If you want to come and say hi, just give us a follow at Dr. Jane Levesque, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jane. Guys, that's it for today. We got to run. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll look at having you on again in the future to dive into some more specific topics. Thank you so much. Dr. Jane's information will be below if you want to reach out and talk more about a schedule for fertility. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out our content. And if you liked it, please like, subscribe, and share. It greatly helps us out. And if you need personal help with IBD, IBS, or your gut health, you can go ahead and schedule a session with our team to deep dive on your case and your needs and how we can get real results. I'll put a link right around here or below. And just remember that you're not alone. Please reach out and connect. We can do this, but more importantly, we can do it together. Happy healing.